Lieutenant Colonel Alan West is here. He's a retired Army lieutenant colonel. He's the executive director of the American Constitutional Rights Union and ACRU Action Fund. And he was a part of a letter of American military veterans very concerned about this CQ Brown. Hello, Colonel West. Good to have you with us, sir.
Vince, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.
If you would you lay out your concerns with this General CQ Brown?
Well, I think you just heard it right there. And, he may be a very, decorated, distinguished combat aviator in the Air Force. But when you put out a statement that says we only want to have 46% white male aviators in the United States Air Force, you don't solve racial discrimination by creating racial discrimination. As a matter of fact, I think that the United States Supreme Court just ruled about that with their decision in the Harvard-UNC case. So it is very disconcerting to me that we have a four-star general, and I could care less about his color. Yeah. But he is talking about racial quotas. He is talking about discrimination. And as a paratrooper, when I got on an airplane, an Air Force aircraft, I didn't care about the color of the pilot. I just wanted to make sure that it was a good pilot up there, yes, a co-pilot, and a good navigator that could get us to our drop zone. But that's one of the many concerns that we have, because we don't need more ideological generals. We need generals that will restore our military capability and capacity and get us back focused on our true mission.
Yeah, it's interesting that I hadn't even thought to bring this up, and you did just a moment ago, but he is a black man, CQ Brown. One of the important elements here is, why would a black general officer want to advance a policy that would lead to black junior officers having the burden of people assuming that they got there because of their skin color? Why would he do that?
Well, because he's bought into this whole DEI, CRT agenda, and that's been detrimental to the effectiveness of our force. And, just to use the Tuskegee Airmen as an example, the 332nd Fighter Squadron, these guys didn't ask for any degradation of the standards. They exceeded the standards. And when they were the combat pilots over in World War II, they were the most requested fighter squadron by the bombers for escort. Why? Not because of their skin color, because they did not lose a bomber. They and those pilots and those bombers wanted to get back home. So how is it that we have gone from that period of time when the military was segregated to now this period of time when we're talking about we need to, increase racial discrimination? That's not helping us to have a cohesive force. And so I look at that. Yeah. I look at some of the stances he's made, when it comes to the COVID issue. Are you going to, and Eric Schmidt and Senator Rounds asked him about this, are you going to actively allow these people that were wrongfully put out of the force to come back in at their rank and with back pay? And he kind of skirted that question also. So we don't need another ideologue as the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. We need someone that's going to be serious about our military capability and readiness.
Yes, and in fact, it's amazing that the way that the Biden administration is dressing this up, they're pretending like because of their nominee's skin color that this is a, quote, diverse pick. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking at this guy going, wait a second, he's the same person as thoroughly modern Mark Milley. Mark Milley sits in front of the United States Congress and tells them, I want to understand white rage. I'm white. What caused all these people to assault this building and try and overturn our democracy? It sounds like the same person, just with a different costume.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's supposed to make people more at ease because you have this four-star, black American general. Well, again, in the military, we don't care about your race. We care about one thing. Are you going to be able to go out and ensure that our military can recruit, can train, yes, can deploy, can fight, can win, and take care of our families? And what this general is focusing on, what our military senior leadership is focusing on right now, is more of this stuff about the DEI and more of this stuff about, the gender dysphoria and all of these other things to yes, take away from the focus on the mission.
Seems like we don't have to wait for results either because we've already got them, right? I mean, as the military's become more woke, recruitment has become a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it absolutely has, and I think that that's what the people on the Senate Armed Services Committee should be asking him about. What are you going to do to turn the page on this recruiting and retention woes that we see? The all-volunteer force is now 50 years old, and in these last 2 to 3 years, we've seen these incredible challenges to keep this a well-trained and manned force. And then I think another thing we should be asking him, Vince, is, what's your take on Afghanistan? If you had been the chairman, what would you have done different about Afghanistan? Because we need to understand that. Help us understand Bagram Air Base. Why did we give away Bagram Air Base? And this was a very strategically important base. So I just pray that the Republicans over there on the Senate Armed Services Committee just don't rubber stamp this because they're afraid of being called, bad names. They need to understand that regardless of color, we need to have leaders in our military, not ideologues.
Yeah, no, that's right. And Democrats are making a big stink right now, and the left broadly, all their media organs, that Republicans are blocking promotions. Do you think that this is a good idea for the Republicans to say, stop, nobody gets promoted here unless you start answering some questions and restore the American military to what it's supposed to be?
Well, I think it's absolutely true. And what Senator Tuberville is doing is saying that this really is a violation of legislation, the Hyde Amendment, because we are using our military and federal, dollars to support murdering unborn babies in the womb. And think about this, Vince. When I was a commander, it was all about taking care of our military families. Now we have the left saying that we want to destroy military families. And again, this should not be one of the focuses of the military. So yes, Senator Tuberville is bringing to the forefront a critical issue that we should not have a military. And the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, signed off of this on a memo, just the same as he signed off saying that, women in the military now have to, have biological males, sharing latrine facilities. That's not what the military is for.
Yeah, I did see today that General C.Q. Brown was asked about this today. He was questioned by Senator Tommy Tuberville, and he whined that the military is going to lose talent unless more abortions take place. So that's the position of the incoming chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
That's insane. So in other words, what he is saying is that he fully supports members of our military killing future Americans and maybe future soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines.
It's insane. You're totally right. So my impression of your remarks is that you don't think this man should be chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
No, I don't. If he continues to say that I am going to toe the line, that is really causing the degradation of our military readiness. When we have a United States Marine Corps that does not have enough amphibious assault craft to get them to the battlefield, then what is the United States Marine Corps supposed to do? So I think instead of him being focused on getting rid of white male officers, he needs to answer the tough question about our national security and military readiness capability. Yep. And from what I saw today, he did not do a good job of that. So I think that Republicans should say, let's put a hold on this nomination until we maybe have a follow-up hearing and get more of these questions asked and answered.
Yes, because at its core is really about integrity. That is the fundamental question here. How honest are you going to be in the face of all of this dishonesty, General? How honest are you going to be about our plans to leave Afghanistan? How honest are you going to be about the utility of kicking people out of the force for not getting the jab? How honest are you going to be about the differences between men and women? How honest are you going to be about military readiness? How honest are you going to be about whether electric vehicles are a good idea for the United States military? Yeah. I mean, this is all fundamentally about integrity. Are you willing to tell the truth? We're not asking you to break the chain of command. We're asking you to be honest with your superiors.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. And we're supposed to have civilian oversight of military. And so, the Armed Services Committee there in the Senate is responsible for these nominations. And they should know exactly what is your focus if you're going to be the next chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. And if you're not willing to say what your true focus is, then we should not allow you to be in that position.
And fundamentally, that role, the Joint Chiefs, but especially the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, that role is specifically an advisory role, correct? That role is meant to give good counsel and advice to the commander-in-chief.
That's exactly correct, and that's why the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff exists. He is the senior military member in the United States forces, and he answers directly through the Secretary of Defense to the President of the United States of America. And if he's just going to be a rubber stamp for these policies that have led to the worst recruiting and retention that we have seen in our military, he probably should not be in the position.
Yeah, that doesn't make you an advisor. That just makes you a lickspittle. Thank you, Colonel West. It's always so good to talk to you. Thank you for your insight today.